CQ RAYNET, this is G4NRC, Golf 4 November Romeo Charlie, operated today by Greg, Golf 0 Delta Uniform Bravo, serving as net control for the RAYNET-UK weekly activity net. This net meets each Sunday afternoon at 1600 hours local time, and is open to all amateur radio operators interested in emergency communications. The primary purpose of the net is to provide the opportunity for members to test equipment, exchange traffic, news, opinions and information, with additional information on the RAYNET-UK website at www.raynet-uk.net. This is a directed net, which means all calls are to be made to the net control station unless you are instructed otherwise, and all RAYNET-UK operators are invited and encouraged to check into the net. When you do check in, please announce your call sign slowly and phonetically, and if you wish to follow by your name, and if you wish to leave the net immediately after checking in, then please call in and out. Otherwise, if you want to leave after subsequent turns, then please make it clear you want to check out at that time. After I've heard a few check-ins, I'll repeat who I've heard. If you're not acknowledged, then please do try again, and I will call for any strays, that's people who've missed their turn at the end of the UK and international sections. So I'll now begin taking check-ins to the RAYNET-UK weekly activity net as usual in call sign number order, starting with stations with figure 8 in their call. Please call now. This is G4NRC.
Golf 8 Echo Yankee G8 EEY. Name is Mike.
Golf 8 Echo Yankee. Good afternoon, Mike. Any other 8s, please? G4NRC, over. And it's 7. Stations figure 7 in their call sign. Please call now. G4NRC, over.
Golf 7 November Echo Hotel G7NEH. Good afternoon, Greg.
G7NEH. Good afternoon, Graham. Any other 7s, please? G4NRC, over. Good, so let's have 6s. Stations figure 6 in their call sign. Please go ahead. G4NRC, over. C, second call for any stations figure 6 in their call sign. Please go ahead, over. G4NRC, let's have figure 5, please call now. G4NRC, over. RRC, we don't have many 5s, so let's go straight to the 4s. Stations figure 4 in their call sign, please go ahead, over.
G4NRC, G4KUJ, Trevor in Watford.
G4KUJ, good afternoon, Trevor. See you coming in via Fusion today. Any other 4s, please? G4NRC, over.
G4KL Golf 4 Kilo India Lima, South Sussex.
G4NRC, good afternoon, Philip. Golf 4 Kilo India Lima. Let's have 3s. Stations with figure 3 in their call sign. Please go ahead, over.
Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, Ian.
Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, good afternoon, Ian. Any other 3s, please? G4NRC, over. For an RC, nothing heard, so let's have 2s. Station's figure 2 in their call sign, and that includes you intermediate 2s. Please call now, over.
2 Echo Zero, Charlie Mike Sierra, calling from Midway, in and out, please.
Echo Zero, Charlie Mike Sierra, good afternoon, Colin. Copied you in and out. Any other 2s, please? G4NRC, over. Nothing heard, so G4NRC calling for any stations figure 1. Figure 1 in that call sign, please go ahead. G4NRC, over. NRC, second call, any stations figure 1 in their call sign, please go ahead, over. For an RC, nothing heard, so let's have Mike Zero stations of any regional secondary identifier, please call now, over.
Mike Zero, Juliet Victor Zulu in Leicester. Les, I will be in and out, but listening.
Mike Zero, Juliet Victor Zulu, good afternoon, Les. Copied you in and out as well. Any other Mike Zero stations of any regional secondary identifier, over? Good, so let's have Golf Zero stations of any regional secondary identifier, please call now, over.
Golf Whiskey Zero, Juliet Lima X-Ray. Good afternoon, Greg. Name is Andy, RAYNET Pembrokeshire. No traffic today, so in and out, please. Over.
For an RC, good afternoon, Andy. Golf Whiskey Zero, Juliet Lima X-Ray, copied as in and out. Okay, let's have our usual shortcuts. Any UK stations who've missed their turn to call in, any UK stations, please call now. G4NRC, over.
Freight Kilo Lima Charlie. Name's Phil. In and out, please. Greg.
G4NRC, I definitely got Phil, Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie, who was in and out. Adrian, Golf 1 Lima Tango Kilo, can you just confirm your intentions? It just sounded like you pressed this PTT with no audio, over. G1LTK, Golf 1 Lima Tango Kilo, G4NRC, over.
Afternoon, G1LTK. It's going to be in and out.
G1LTK, copied in and out. Thanks for that, and good audio that time. Okay, any international liaison stations, any of our colleagues from overseas, usually Nord-Samband of Norway, Aran in Ireland, Aries in Slovakia, any of our international friends, please call now. G4NRC, over. G4NRC, nothing heard, so the final chance, any UK or international stations waiting to call in for the RAYNET-UK activity period, please call now. G4NRC, over. And nothing heard. Okay, just because it's an unrestricted net today, we have low numbers. So hopefully, I'll find out in a minute, today's net is being live streamed by Graham, G7NEH to YouTube today. Past live streams and recordings are available by searching G7NEH, that's Golf 7 November Echo Hotel, on YouTube. While Storm Eowyn has dropped out of the news this week, as it was the 24th of January after all, there are still many parts of Ireland which today are still without power over 2 weeks after the initial storm impact. Some of the other services, like telecoms, may only be working because of generator services in the area. This brings up a couple of questions. One is that RAYNET normally sees its role in the response rather than the recovery phase of an incident. The thinking of power outage durations has been towards longer periods over the years, but how long do you think we may actually be involved in some areas? And the other question is linked to the publication this week of a measure of community resilience in England by researchers at the University of Manchester. The results appear to show that London had the highest community resilience index, with northern regions having lower average scores, along with the southwest being well down the league table. The index is designed to aid decisions on funding, infrastructure investments and public services, but it seems surprising to me that rural areas seemed less self-sufficient than urban ones. The measure looks at things like infrastructure, economic well-being, etc., and looks similar to disaster risk indices used internationally. The idea, though, that the more wealthy you are, the better you will cope with a disaster might be open to some challenge, I think. And on the energy networks, after a brief rally of refilling the gas storage networks, it's fairly stable. The storage tanks are at 32% full, and electricity networks aren't showing any significant loss of load probabilities. So with that, let's go around the list and see what's going on this week. Golf 8 Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC from G8 EEY. I must admit, I don't feel very resilient myself at the moment, having gone down with the croaky sniffles. But I think I'm in with the majority in this part of the world. Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's 6.2 centigrade, 1,031 millibars, 89% relative humidity, and 100% cloud cover, and drizzling nicely when I nipped over to the local shop to get some tea. 10.2 mile per hour winds and 58 degrees. I haven't looked at the resilience indices. Yeah, it's interesting. It seems to be rural areas that seem to get together with resilience, but I think it's still very sparse out in the sticks, like here in Norfolk. But we shall see. The local NRF have reduced their meetings with anybody like us. They did so earlier last year, I think, when they went from every month to every 2 months. They've now gone to 2 meetings a year. So, yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. From G8 EY, over.
Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC. Well, 2 meetings a year is about the highest we've ever had in Cheshire. So you're just joining the rest of the herd, I think, in that. For resilience indices, I do have the link to the real raw data on GitHub, and yeah, you were Kings Lynn and some surrounding areas around that area. We're all in the least resistant part of the world in terms of access, economic well-being, and so on. So ability to buy yourself out of trouble, or even reach somewhere to buy yourself way out of trouble, seems to be a bit on the sparse side. So yeah, it was not looking particularly good in your part of the world. The thing about LRFs and community resilience, there is a LRF sort of get-together where I know some of our Cheshire emergency planners are speaking with regard to community resilience, which probably means I need to get to the action I should have been doing to send them stuff about how we could provide links between communities and links to other services, like if the communities have got PMR 446 or other forms of license-free radio, how if we can hear them, we can pass the messages on over a wider area, just to see if it puts any last-minute spanners into their presentations. Okay, thanks, Mike. Graham, I wonder if we've got any live viewers today. G7NEH, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC, G7NEH. Good afternoon, Greg. Good afternoon to all on the net. Yes, the net is being live streamed today. Concurrently, we have 4 viewing the net, giving more figures on the next round. Not a lot to report this end. Temperature 6.4 degrees, and it feels like 4.7 degrees. Humidity is 86%. Wind speed is 5.1 mile an hour, with a maximum gust of 7.6 mile an hour. So there we go. That's it from Tarvin, and I'll give you some YouTube figures on the next round. G4 NRC, G7NEH.
G7NEH, G4 and RC returning. Okay, yeah, I've poked my head out the door a couple of times today and decided it wasn't worth it and came back in again. Those miles per hour figures intrigue me. Really must have a look at what wind turbines kick in at nowadays. It used to be about 5 miles an hour you needed before a wind turbine could produce any useful energy. So be interesting to see what the average speed is in your area over time and compare it with some of the data that kicks around and see how realistic it is. Right, next to Trevor, G4KUJ, G4 NRC, over.
G4 NRC group, G4KUG. Good afternoon, Greg and everybody else. As you noted, I'm coming in through the YSF bridge today. I checked it yesterday morning and found that I was getting into the YSF server, but the bridge to the DMR server wasn't happening. So gave Guy a quick buzz on the email, and we got that all sorted out in short order with some reboots done at his end. So that's all good. So I thought I'd give it a whirl today. Only other radio stuff is that, which you're probably already aware of, conditions in the evenings on the Pactor sched to Germany are still very, very weak and poor, but I did manage to get the messages in the other evening, and I passed on the 2 CW Ops messages via WinLink. So I think that's probably about the lot from me at the moment. Back to you, Greg, G4 NRC, G4 KUJ.
G4 KUJ, G4 and RC. Okay, well, audio via Fusion sounds a little more distorted than usual, just as an observation. But, glad that the bridge is back up again. In terms of propagation, I picked up my traffic off you, which is fantastic, thanks for that. And observation picked up yesterday, which I had to do some looking into, but sunspot maximum, which people were expecting to be this year, there has been observations and a theory about why we get 2 peaks sometimes, and this is the sunspot numbers peak in the northern and southern hemispheres at different times. So while we might be getting a peak at the moment, that's apparently coming from the southern hemisphere of the sun, and the northern hemisphere is just revving up, and we're not sure if it's going to rev up enough to cause a second peak in conditions. So I'm not sure whether at the moment that's going to be a good or a bad thing, but we'll see, and if it'll just drag it out for a few more months, it will be appreciated. And I might get some operating time. Okay, thanks Trevor. Round 2, Philip, Golf 4 Kilo India Lima, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC from G4 KIL. Sorry, I wasn't the first G4 in this time. I always seem to be the first one in. I think I nearly got there, but I think I must have got totally swamped by is it KUJ there? Because he was still talking when I let go of the transmit button, and I had to call in again. But no problem. That's all interesting. I might drop him an email and ask him about that Fusion link, because I've got there's an RAYNET guy lives in Farnborough who works with that mode, and it'd be nice to see if there's some way he could come in. May depend if there's a repeater close enough on the right network. Your questions about the resilience and so on, I'm sure I ought to have lots of comments to make, but I'm trying to think and thinking, well, they're good questions, and I don't think I've got any answers, so I'm not going to say any more on that one. One of the people coming up as monitoring the YouTube stream would be me. Actually mainly because I'm using it as an audio signal for some speakers I'm setting up. At least that way, when I'm setting the speakers up, I'm probably not missing what you're saying on the net. So that seems a kind of good idea, but it does put another viewer on, as it were. The other thing, of course, is thank you, Greg, for the attempt again on where were we, Tuesday, wasn't it? To try and connect on the JS8. And I think you were aware that I was seeing you coming through another station, but I don't think we got anything through in the end, if that was right. But there we go. It was worth a try. Of course, this weekend would have been a good weekend to try and do stuff, which is because it's one of the JS8 parties, I think, this weekend. But unfortunately, not convenient from my point of view. Didn't make Friday night, and I'm not unlikely to make the next Fridays for this or next month on our chat. I think that's it for me at the moment. G4NRC, G4KIL.
G4KIL, G4NRC. Okay, well, I wish I'd got the logbook in here with me, but I do the DMR nets from a different room than the HF operating. Yes, I've got a direct contact from you, and something in my head is saying your signal was minus 8 dB, signal to noise. So that did get through. I tried to get stuff back to you, but didn't get any acknowledgement, so might have been a bit one way. I'm having some, what's the polite way of putting it, interesting times with RF in the shack. And how I set things up. So if I don't have an ATU, then I can run some bands but not others through the internal ATU of the 7300. If I use an external ATU to get to those other bands, then great, but if I use more than 20 or 30 watts, then I have RF getting back into all sorts of systems. So I don't know where it's all going, but not in the right direction. But that does mean I'm slightly power constrained on some bands and some nets, which is a nuisance. The questions are, I'm now having to write the news with an eye to the fact it is pretty much verbatim copied across into the weekly Friday news, even with, bearing in mind, I only type it, so I use it as a prompt to speak in this. It's not a verbatim script, and hence somebody makes fun every week of correcting the grammar in there, which may or may not always go down well. But I was wondering whether I needed to drop the links into some of these things that I find, but then it would just drive even more the idea of I'm doing this for a small audience than a much wider readership elsewhere. So maybe something to think of on the second round of discussions. Okay, all noted Fridays are problem children's, and the Gregorian calendar once again apologises for Fridays, therefore in February and March not being very useful to you, but we will catch up soon. Okay, Ian, on to you. Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4 and RC, over.
G4 and RC and the group G3ZHX. Good afternoon all. As regards how long we may need to be continuing to cover in the event of a restore, after the great storm in '87, my brother had pneumonia for 10 days, I believe, and telephone nearly as long, but that's another problem. And I think we do get involved with restores. If you think about the great cable tunnel fire at Manchester, I believe there were people deployed for that. Certainly during the floods in Gloucester, I don't think activity during restoration is going to be that unusual. My personal guess is the most likely cause for a call-out is going to be a cock-up on the telephone system, particularly since there's no longer any slack, and there's so much of it governed by software, and of course software mistakes do get made. but I think I've probably said enough there. I'll hang around for the next round. G3Z8X.
Ray G4 and RC returning. Okay, some bits to chew on there though. Yes, well, I'm kind of playing into everybody's hands by doing the here's where we're at with the the network's information through winter, because it just brings in another cause. Many causes of networks going down. Weather is just one of them. Human error, human intervention, and straight technical failure all go in there one way or another. So, yes, you're right, the causes are statistically probably more likely to be human-related than weather. It's just weather brings in an extra dimension through at least 3 months of the year. The Manchester cable tunnel fire was interesting because I don't recall Manchester getting turned out for it. We were put on standby in Cheshire to support the NHS, but that didn't actually got to the point where they forgot to put us on standby, and after a few days I called up and got told, actually no, we've actually sorted everything out ages ago. So we were on standby for longer than planned. I'm not sure about other areas, but that does bring in another interesting point, that cable tunnel fire, along with some fibre optics, did cause some mischief over a much wider area than people envisaged. So, okay, all good stuff, and well, we've got a slim net, we may as well keep it slim for time as well and go back to the top. Golf 8 Echo Yankee, G4 and RC over.
G4 NRC from G8 DEY. Yeah, it's interesting. There was a time when, certainly in our part of the world, the broadcast fibres ran along the earth wire at the top of the distribution system towers, and they kept breaking because people were going up the towers and nicking the wire. Oh, those were the days. Yeah, in answer to your question about standard wind turbines, they say anything less than 5.5 metres per second, that's 12.3 miles per hour, is uneconomical as an average. Norfolk seems to be in the 6 to 7 metres per second average, so we're just about viable economically, but there are certainly some areas in the UK where it wouldn't be worth putting up a turbine, it would seem. That's it from me for this week. Thanks for running the net, Greg. I'll keep listening to the end from G8 DEY.
Golf 8 Echo Yankee, G4 and RC. Okay, sounds like the data I remembered wasn't far off. I think we got the units wrong then. Economic break-even point is interesting, because I thought they were so cheap. Any time they made money, it was just worth doing. But okay, so there is a break-even point. I should really have asked German colleagues, since they are getting quite used to, I think, what they call Dunkelflaute, which is dark skies and no winds, hence neither the solar farms nor the wind turbines are doing them any good. They get dependent on imported energy to keep their grid stable. So, okay, all little bits of learning stuff there. I think the fibres on pylon earth wires have slowly been phased out and done away with, because they were part of a wider network that National Grid provided, and it proved to be awkward for them as well, leading to some early failures. So I suspect they've all gone for commercial use anyway. They're still there for their own networks uses. Right, Graham, let's see what dates we've got. And no, I didn't go to the Nantwich Rally today, but I'm guessing neither did you or Dave, and neither did Henry from work either. G7NEH, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC, G7NEH, yeah, okay, Greg, no problem. So this week on the net we've had 11 views, concurrently got 4 viewing and 3 likes, which is good. The last net we streamed, which was 2 weeks ago, we had 42 views and 4 likes, which is again on par with what we normally get. And for those of you that are subscribed to G798 Ham Radio channel on YouTube, you might have seen a short pop-up with some time lapses of a 3D printer I've got. And just out of interest, that's been up for a couple of days, and it's had 211 views and 2 likes, which is not bad. So there we go. Okay, back to you, Greg. Thanks for doing the net, and I'll catch you in the week. G4NRC, G7NH.
G7NH, G4NRC. Yeah, I'd do a time lapse of mine printing, but it'd still be too long. Having seen your machine print at full speed, you still go a lot faster than I do with mine. But it still has its uses as long as it does its job at the end of the day. I'm sure I could tune it better, but again, it's time and motivation that's needed for that. Okay, and interesting, the 3D printing video got more views, so that does mean we are quite focused in what is attracting attention from people. It's not necessarily randoms that are coming to watch the net videos. They're coming because they know it's there. Right, thanks Graham, and thanks for doing the streaming. Trevor, you've emailed saying you couldn't see some comments I put in a document. They were the comments actually in Word, in the Word document, so they should have been visible unless Office 365 ate them, in which case I've got a different problem. G4KUJ, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC, G4KUJ. Yeah, okay, Greg. Perhaps I didn't read it carefully enough to see the additions, but as far as I could see, everything that was on there looked familiar to me. But I'll go and have another look when the net's over. To fit G4KIL, the YSF server only connects to 23531, and as far as I'm aware, it's not connected to any repeaters, so the only way you can get at it is by using a hotspot, which obviously works quite happily on YSF as well as DMR or P25 or what have you. So that's the way that your friend could get into this net, but only this net, 23531 talk group only. So I think that's about it, Greg. No doubt we might chat during the week on one mode or another. G4NRC, G4KUJ, cheers to you. Thanks for running the net.
KUJ, G4NRC returning. Yeah, I made no changes to the document wording. I just highlighted sections and put a comment to the side. You'll have to view changes, or look at view comments or whatever it takes to make it happen, because I was only proposing words. I've had some frustrations with, which one is it, Google Docs, which seems to have a multitude of ways of messing things up. You can either change the document, or you can suggest changes, or you can do a comment. So I thought I'd keep it simple and change as little as possible and just put my witterings in a comment box for people to have a look at. With regard to Fusion, do I need to learn more about this? Possibly, but yeah, if the hash 23531 Fusion room is available to public networks. It depends whether or not Fusion repeaters will allow dynamically calling up rooms, because if they do, then anybody should be able to call up hash 23531 through a Fusion repeater and get bridged over to actually goes to 50235331 first. It comes into our system and then would break out into Brandmeister. So thought it was doable, but maybe Philip's friend will be able to help us out. G4KIL, G4 NRC over.
G4NRC, G4KIL. Okay, I think I got most of those comments on board, and we'll try to process them and see if whether that may be of any help. As far as I know, the gentleman concerned in Farnborough doesn't have a hotspot. Maybe he can be persuaded to get one. But I know he does have access to some sort of repeater, but it might not be one that's on the general network or something. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, yes, that was that one. Greg, your comments about problems with RF, they reminded me that when I tried to operate to do the JSA call from up a hill from the car with the now let me have a think. No, actually, when I had the whip on top, I didn't get out anywhere useful, but I was able to use the amplifier. So I've got an AFT817, so it's only 5 watts out on its own. So I stick an amplifier on the outside. That's how I get up to the usually running 25 or 50 watts on data or modes. And with the whip, it wasn't interfering with anything, but it wasn't getting anywhere. But when I put my long wire, strung the long wire up, that I think it was causing interference problems in as much as I couldn't get it to work with the amplifier. The amplifier was going into an unstable mode in the sense it was just, when I keyed it up, it was just clicking on and off and on and off and on and off, and I suspect it was picking up its own RF, as it were, and it was interfering with it, and it was shutting off. Now, what that made me think of was what I probably should do is to get myself some aluminium sheet to sit everything on inside the car. That might lead to a suggestion / an interesting discussion as to whether you'd consider doing that in your shack at home. I have considered doing it at home where I have the radio set up. Of course, there are safety issues with that, and it might be that yes, maybe have a sheet of aluminium, but have it covered with something else, so that you're not leaning on it, because obviously leaning directly on an earth bit of metal is all very fine, but the potential safety issues of that, if anything were to go wrong, are a little bit dodgy. I mean, if everything's probably earth, it should be fine, but I'm not sure I really want to lean on an earthed metal all the time. So, yes, okay, I think that's probably it from me for the moment. I will look forward to speaking to you all again next week. Should be up next week in the normal way. Say 73s. So I will be signing out on this time through. Thanks for the next, Greg, and speak to you later. G4NRC, G4KIL.
G4KIL, G4NRC. Well, like you say, if the Earth screened is earthed, clues in the name, to the same as the mains Earth, and everything is equally bonded, then you are fine. Should not be a problem. In fact, the only time I've really had issues with that was when I found that the earth in the house was a little bit noisy. And when I say a little bit noisy, I mean 50 volts of noise on the thing, which I found when I was up a ladder and reached out to try and unscrew the connector on a satellite dish, where my outdoors earthed ladder with me on it was at one potential, and the braid of the coax coming from the earth inside the house was definitely not. Was found to be a rather noisy skybox that was imposing rubbish onto the Earth system. In American terms, because it's the land of the free, they think nothing of putting a sheet of copper underneath the station work surface, or as the station work surface. It's just a bit shiny and looks a bit grubby after a while. I have got a sheet of brass which would have the same problems, as I got it for making cone antennas for microwaves. It's never quite happened, so I was thinking of pressing that into service just to try and get some management in. That everything is easier earthed down to a point if it's close. My shack is so compact and leads are so long, it just gets fun. I really need to gut it and start all over again and shorten all the leads down to a minimum, I think, and see what happens. But shock issues inside the house, if it's domains Earth, should not be a problem. It's only if you do the game of breaking the Earth for the radio for PME, where I would strongly advise people to go and read the RSGB's web sheet on protective multiple earthing and what you have to do to make sure you keep the system safe, even though you've separated the mains and RF Earths. So that's possibly one for a whole new topic for another week. Rounding out this week's net, though, it's going to be Ian. Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4 and RC, over.
G3ZHX here. Wow, I've been promoted. Yeah, well, thank you for running the net, Greg, and I should have remembered you'd been involved, because Wirral was one of the areas that was cut off by the tunnel fire. And 73 everybody, and I'll see you all next week. G3ZHX.
Hotel X-Ray, G4 and RC. Yeah, it did go a long way, but if you have certain areas where all the fibres of the country seem to come together, then it had some interesting effects. I think now really throwing my mind back, it was really crazy that Manchester didn't actually suffer that much. It was more the areas outside Manchester, hence Cheshire and beyond. But all part of the learning experience, but only stays a learning experience if we keep talking about it and learning lessons from it. Right, with that more relaxed net than rushing to try and finish for a time, thanks everybody for taking time out to participate in this afternoon's net. Be careful, have a good week, and until next Sunday afternoon at 1600 hours local time, I'll close the RAYNET UK weekly activity net on 23531 Pheonix and Brandmeister, 5023531 on the RAYNET UK system, and return those talk groups to being an open net rather than a directed net. 730, this is G4 and RC now closing and reverting to my normal call sign of Golf 0, Delta Uniform Bravo. Bye bye.